Yeah, so it looks like we can kind of sort of get the time together, and then we're a little more late, I guess. 10:06, that feels right to me. But anyway,
Just in
oh,
time.
hey internet, it's not just the time; it's way over the time, really. But yeah, hey internet, this is our latest edition of Salient Points number 30. I'm your host, Carlos Macias, and on the other side, I got
What you think is a co-host, Dalan Kirkwood.
just say your name, man. Say what is your name, sir?
But hey, I'm allowed
But
to say co-host. I'm allowed to have a title. You get to have a host title. I'm co-host.
make it more complicated than it has to be. So yeah, anyway, Salient Points is your weekly top 10 news breakdown where the points don't really matter, but they kind of do. Dalan and I match up our top 10 top news articles for the last week. And out the other end comes out a weighted top 10 of our favorites. And this week, Dalan, it seems like the stars seem to have aligned for the first time, and we actually got a perfect score. So we seem to care that, or there wasn't that many huge breaking news. But with 20 points, meaning we both put it on our top 10 list, our own personal list, is Nintendo being investigated for patent infringement. Anytime there's like dicey legal situations, it's always exciting times, right? So this is due to a complaint filed by Gamevice again. So Nintendo last year already. The U.S. International Trade Commission is investigating Nintendo for possible patent infringement. Gamevice previously sued Nintendo over the Switch last August and dropped the case voluntarily. Now it's claiming Nintendo violated the Tariff Act of 1930 by they busted out that old chestnut.
Yeah, no, that's what makes me laugh when you say that too.
And so if you guys don't know, the Gamevice was sort of like kind of like the Joy-Cons on the Switch where you could connect them on the side, but the Gamevice connected to iOS and Android devices, which allowed you to play with analog sticks and buttons, similar to what's happening with the Switch. Nintendo does the same thing with the Switch, but it's exclusive to that console. Whereas Gamevice, you could use it for iPads, tablets, Androids, whatever you wanted. You could just connect to it. But I don't know. My question to you, Dan, does Gamevice have a case here?
You know what? I'm not actually 100% sure if they do because it's a legal precedence, and I don't know too much about law myself, but it definitely sounds like they definitely did something wrong, and they need to fix it. They need to fix it.
The claim basically is that they have this patent that you can connect these controllers to a device, whether it's analog or control buttons, which is something that they did release in previous times. And like I had told you before, right, I brought it up a few times, is that the Switch is basically an NVIDIA Shield, right? So these guys are kind of like, well, yeah, it really is. It's put together, but then it's the Nintendo name slapped on it. So of course, people are going to come out of the woodworks and they're going to try to sue Nintendo. But I mean, the thing is, it actually got far enough to where the US ITC, the International Trade Commission, is kind of involved now. So it's kind of it's gone to a next step, right? Where it's like it's being and I guess I didn't. One of the things I wasn't able to figure out was importing. So, that's something to dig into some more.
Wait, importing for what?
The importing the Switch. That's what they're suing for. That's the whole thing. The whole Tariff Act. They busted up the old chestnut there. But it's something to see how it develops, right? But it's just kind of it has become a big deal. Like last year in August, they tried to sue Nintendo for the same thing, and they dropped the suit. So they're bringing it up. I guess to them, they're just looking for ways to get some of that cash money, right? But this, I don't know. This seems like it's one of those like baseless claims, that you see that we saw with the PlayStation, which actually is what happened with. That's the reason we didn't get DualShock controllers at the very beginning of the PlayStation 3's console life, because they were being sued at the time, and they were being sued for the Rumble technology. And I think that even affected the Wii controller and the Xbox 360 controller too. I think the only thing was that Nintendo settled and Microsoft settled, and Sony was kind of like, no, that's past technology. We're trying to do new technology, Wavebird or whatever it is. So, that's what happened with that. But we'll see how this goes, man. It's just, interesting. It's still one of those, kind of trying to bait, trying to see what they can grab, see if Nintendo will settle. But
I think this is one of those. I think this is actually one of those lawsuits that even if it doesn't actually pan out, it'll still make Nintendo actually think about what they're going to do next time, or to actually make some serious changes to upcoming things that they're going to be wanting to release, because they don't want to have patent problems when they're trying to release additional items for the Nintendo. I mean, what was it? They just came out with the Labo, and then they announced that they were going to try and make a bunch of items for their Switch rather than trying to make new software for their Switch or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I know we talked about it in our previous podcast. But being that if they're going to focus on the actual physical items that can come with the Switch, they want to make sure they can patent them properly and not get sued for it, because that's just a loss of money and time, and it can actually really limit to how they actually ship these things overseas, if anything. So,
it's the U.S. thing, so it's whatever's being imported to the U.S. But yeah, it's definitely something. You just can't protect yourself over every little nitpicky thing, right? This is really Gamevice trying to pick it apart and be like, Nintendo, we're coming after you. We'll see what we could get you for. And honestly, I'm thinking they just want to settle it, right? They're like, hey, just settle with us. It's fine. Give us $1 million and we're good. We'll go on about our business.
Just pay us and we'll stop bothering you.
They'll continue making their own little device that you can plug into your iOS and your Android, and they get some publicity out of this. And if Nintendo settles, they get some money, so they get dropped into their war chest there. So what else do we have, Dalan?
Well, next thing that we have on our list at a score of 12 points is kind of it's a big jump in points. I know the first one was the perfect score, as you like to call it, but the second score, I still think it's a good score. Still being at 12 points, talking about Destiny. Of course, it's been a huge topic as of recently because the new Warmind expansion drops as of May 8th, as of the time, if anybody's watching this video, depending on if it's actually come up or not. So most of the information I'll be stating is as if it has not dropped yet. But I know that they're coming
tomorrow. YouTube goes live immediately, and the podcast should be up tomorrow, the audio version. But we should be playing it, right? What do we got to look forward to?
What we got to look forward to is their new story for the escalating protocol, which is apparently a good long fight against the Frozen Hive and 3 other factions actually trying to go after a weapon that really nobody should have. But apparently Rasputin is like the saving grace and also the worst enemy of everybody, just being that you got a weapon that's just so powerful that nobody should have it, but you shouldn't leave it alone, because you don't want to let it. It's like an atom bomb or one of those bombs, a water mine that you push off a boat. You don't want to just let it sit there on dry land, because you don't know if that thing's going to blow at any time. And if somebody else picks it up, you don't know what they're going to use it for. So, fact being, that's the escalating protocol in a nutshell. It looked like there was going to be a horde mode to me, just from the way that the video showed up.
Might be the horde mode, right? With the Frozen Hive and all that.
Yeah. Like it was talking about how the longer you survive, the stronger they get. So that's the only reason I thought it might be a horde mode thing.
The horde mode, man. Frozen Hive, though.
Frozen Hive.
Yeah, like it's like enemies you've seen before, right? Like in the new Star Wars, where you've seen foxes before. No, these are ice foxes, right? Or they want to. But they look kind of cool, though. To be honest, yes, they're rehashing the same type of enemy, but I'm kind of down to take them out and get all the little snaps and all the little. And Bungie does beautiful sound design, so I'm sure we're gonna get all kind of cool little noises to the enemies and all that. So,
oh yeah, I gotta say that's something that Destiny is very well known for, is their sound, as I mentioned in our last podcast talking about their soundtrack. But what else we have is the raid lair that's actually going to be coming out for this one. Really, I would just prefer a raid. Once again, I think we had this conversation a number of times, but hey, they're expanding on the raid lair. Hopefully it'll be more like a raid, like some of our previous endeavors from Destiny 1, because they were talking about how they're going to actually be bringing back a lot of mechanics from the original one and expanding on those, and hopefully they do that. But the raid lair for Spire of the Stars is actually going to be starting up just 3 days after the expansion goes live on May 11th. So I know people are going to be struggling or scrambling to try and get a part of that.
But it's not gonna be a full raid. I mean, we already got a taste of the raid layer, right? With the first one, it's like one boss and then sort of little raid mechanics, right? So it should be a 3 to 4 hour raid, right? Once we know it well, once we can break it down a bit, but we already know, right? It's gonna be kind of a raid mini.
But that's what I'm talking about, though. Is I don't want a raid mini. I want a full raid.
You know, that's what we're getting, raid mini, whether you want it or not, or that's what you're talking about. We're gonna get a raid mini. But you know, are you surprised that they showed quite a bit of it, man? I mean, they didn't show bosses, but you can kind of get an idea of what they're going for, kind of at least the theme. But before, they hadn't shown anything at all, not even a glimpse, not even.
I don't know. There was that gigantic worm thing that was crawling across the stage. That thing looked awesome. I was like, I hope I fight that.
That might be in the story, though. I think I saw it like down the, you know, further into the trailer. That might be part of the story. I think that snake thing. But if it is the raid layer boss, that'd be kind of awesome.
Well, I wasn't one of those.
I know we have.
Yeah. Well, hold on. I'm just gonna say I wasn't one of those people that was pausing and rewinding the trailer to try and figure out what new was coming out. But some of the major things that people were talking about was the new weapons that they were going to be dropping in this expansion, being the relic weapon, the Valkyrie, the exotic sword that nobody knew anything about, being the Worldline Zero, the exotic scout rifle that people looked at forever, but now get to use the Polaris Lance. And there's apparently the return of the sleeper stimulant. The simulant. I don't know how to pronounce that thing. I know we were going hard with that thing in some of our previous endeavors. But
it wasn't useful in every situation. It wasn't useful in every situation, but it was still uber powerful for the couple of times we would use it.
Yeah, but they're saying that it should be having a return in this new expansion. So if there's a new version of it, then I'm down to get it. If it's just an updated version of it, I'm still down to get it. I do hope that they re-release the sleeper simulant in a way that is more updated for the way the game is turned. Now, last thing I wanted to mention about the weapons is, you know, as you beat the Warmind storyline for the great quests, there's supposed to be a submachine gun, a sniper, and a shotgun that you can get from beating the story, or at least the bosses from the story. But there was one weapon, the handgun, that was previously shown in a previous teaser, I guess during E3, because somebody was telling me about that, but I didn't actually see that particular trailer. But the fact being is that the company never actually mentioned how you get the handgun. And of course, their response was, you obtain it by not the Warmind bosses. And I was cracking up when they said that. So they were talking about, we don't want to spoil everything. But basically, you don't get it from the Warmind bosses.
Did find out, Dalan. Now we were trying to figure out how to get you the expansion, right? So you needed to buy it, but you found out that you actually bought the season pass way back when.
Hey, you don't have to spill my whole life on the mic right now. Is that necessary?
Okay, so we're ready to go. Right after this, we're gonna get down. We're gonna try to get the milestones so we could get ready. Now, what we used to do, or what we have done with the expansions, right, is that you kind of do some milestones, you build up things or bounties or whatever you can. So when
trying to hit max gear.
Yeah, so when the update drops, it's very easy to turn everything in and you just kind of max out, right? Max out your character. Or if it's not your primary character, your main character, you at least can have an easier path to maxing out your secondary characters, right? So we're looking forward to that. I'm down, Dalan. We're gonna hit it up starting tomorrow. You know what? I kind of wish it was like a midnight launch thing so we could stay up a little bit. But you know what? I do appreciate
push back the time, though. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, well, you don't have a choice, but I do appreciate them being very conscientious about the fact that people work. So they're like, you know what? We're gonna drop updates in the middle of the workday, so you have to go to work. Back would be good because you can't take a day off, right? I mean, you're gonna be half a day off at work, and you still gotta wait till 10 or whatever it is for it to drop. So. But yeah, it's, you know, are you feeling the Destiny bug? Are you feeling the itch so far? Because it really hasn't been hyped that much, right? It really, I mean, we've been disappointed, right, with the first expansion, the last one. So maybe that's
that is an understatement. That is such an understatement. I almost wrote Destiny off completely because of how terribly they were doing their fan base. So hopefully they could redeem themselves with this, but if they can't, I'm pretty much done until Destiny 3.
We've talked about it. We did talk about it offline about it, but I'm kind of like, I don't have the highest expectations. My expectations of this, Dalan, is a 2 or 3 hour campaign, and then try to max level at least one of my characters, which is what I did with the last expansion, and get down with the raid. And that's about it. I'm good with getting 10, 15 hours out of it, and I can continue on with my life.
And this is where I say lowered expectations. Gotcha. I love some Mad World. But anyways.
Next up at number 3 with 10 points is so PUBG on mobile apparently is not making any money. PUBG Mobile was the most downloaded Q1 2018 on Google Play and in the App Store, according to Sensor Tower. But that didn't translate to sales, as it doesn't appear anywhere in the top 10 revenue charts. The publisher is Tencent, and that they do have a top earner on the charts via Honor of Kings. But PUBG is just not on there. I don't know. My question to you, Dalan, do you think PUBG's gameplay style is just not microtransactionable enough, possibly?
Well, they don't have enough stuff in that game to really do microtransactions in it, because when I played it on the Xbox, it was basically you jump out of a plane, you procure everything that's on the ground already, and it's not like when you die you get anything special. It's not like you have a bunch of different equipment that you could use that can make you stand out from other characters. I mean, if they included these things in PUBG, maybe they could actually do that. Heck, they could even try and include a subscription for their game, but I know they don't want to do that. They want it to be a free game. But with Fortnite out there, with their free game, and them having so many different things that you can actually modify your characters with, and you can modify your guns with, modify your bullets with, I mean, they can just microtransaction everything.
I think the problem with the game is, and it's cool. I mean, they're basically saying that people are downloading it for free and playing it for free. They're just not throwing any money into it, right? But I think if the way that they would do microtransactions is something like that you were alluding to, was that they have to change the balance of the game in that sense, right? So if you can microtransaction into new weapons and new suits and new uniforms or whatever it is, right? Like, it would change the whole balance of the game, right? And it's unfortunate because apparently it's the best running version of the game. I mean, PC can run it, but of course, when you have a $2,000, $3,000 machine, why wouldn't you be able to run it? But for example, Xbox One doesn't run it that efficiently. Apparently on mobile, it runs better than even on Xbox One. So it's one of those things that it does show off some of its popularity, but it's one of those things where if you're on mobile, you got to be free to play. And you got to be able to microtransaction and be able to grab those whales, man. That's really the way to do it, because they didn't. I mean, the other way they could have done it was make it a $2, $3 download, or maybe up to $5, and enough people know the name, and they would have been recognizable enough, and they make money that way. But other than that, unless they're really messing with the balance of the game, I just don't see how it can be microtransactionable, especially when you're dropping into zones and you're picking up all your gear. You're picking up all your wardrobe or whatever, unless you're gonna buy, suits or whatever to jump in there with. But like I said, it'll change the balance of the game. But that's just one of the things that popped up this week. Anything else, Dylan, before we go on to the next thing?
Not on that particular subject. I mean, I have one of my favorite subjects coming up, but if you have anything else you got to say about that, I'm good.
I threw it to you so you can go to the next thing.
I know. I just wanted to stop you. All right. So next on our list, we got 10 points for the Hall of Fame of video games, because now Final Fantasy VII and Tomb Raider was inducted to the Hall of Fame. So that makes me super happy, because when I was a little kid, I played Final Fantasy VII way too much. I'm not going to go too much into that, but for the Strong Museum out in Rochester, I can't remember exactly where it was. I should have wrote that down. But this year they decided to induct it into the world's video game Hall of Fame, along with a bunch of other games. But the 4 games that they decided to do in total this year was Space War, John Madden Football, Tomb Raider, and Final Fantasy VII. My question to you, Carlos, is: do you believe that these games deserved to be in the Hall of Fame?
Well, it just depends on their criteria, right? But I mean, these are influential games. Space War, John Madden Football. I mean, it's one of the big sports titles, and it kind of spawned a whole bunch of other games from that, right? That you could do sports video games.
Yeah. So
and it was very influential, man. Went through an evolutionary process. The whole Madden football at the very beginning, they couldn't even get 12 players on the field or however many that are ultimately on a football field. Sorry, I don't play football like that. They're eventually able to get that, and it's part of the evolutionary process. Because I know 30 for 30 was done on John Madden football. I was like, oh, that's pretty fascinating. The fact that it all came together and through the evolution of video games, that was very influential. And of course, we got Tomb Raider and Final Fantasy VII, right? Tomb Raider, maybe it was just on the titillating factor. I guess you could say that it was very influential. It was popular. It was, things popping out. And Final Fantasy VII, man, it made RPGs go mainstream in the US pretty much.
Well, I will say this for when they were actually making the decision, because they have basic criteria. The nominees are generally judged on how widely they're recognized, how long the long-term popularity that they had, the international impact that they've actually created, the significant influence on the design and development, like you were stating, on other video games, pop culture, and general to other forms of entertainment, of how it actually impacted pretty much the world. And these two games definitely did that when it came to the entertainment industry. Because for these two games, I did notice that it didn't just impact the video game world. It also impacted the real world. I mean, what was it? It was WWE was trying to do that whole football league thing, and they did that weird camera view thing because they were trying to get very video game-ish with it, even though I don't think it worked out too well because they only had one season. But fact is that it just impacted other parts of entertainment as well. That's what I'm getting. You still there?
Oh, you're roboting.
Yeah,
you're roboting really now. You're roboting. My bad. I think it's your bad.
No, well, either way it goes. But, the question I have in this particular case for you is, even outside of all of the impacts that these particular games have had, there's, of course, already a bunch of other games that were nominated, a bunch of games that are already included. I think there's like a good 16 games that are actually already included. But out of the ones that were nominated, I put a list up there for you, Carlos. There's 7 games. There's 8 games here that didn't actually get picked. Asteroids, Call of Duty, Dance Dance Revolution, Half-Life, King's Quest, Metroid, Minecraft, and Mrs. Pac-Man. Out of these, do you think any one of these other ones should have won?
I mean, no, I think it's one of those things like with any Hall of Fame, right? You get a period of nominations, and if you're not in that round, or if you're not part of that top 5 list, top 4 list, is, these are some good games: Call of Duty, Half-Life, Metroid, and I'm looking through some of these lists, and it seems like some of them are series and some of them are specific to a title. For example, Final Fantasy VII, but then you got John Madden Football, unless they're talking about the very, very original John Madden Football. But they also got Grand Theft Auto 3 and just Halo 1. So it's kind of like, every Hall of Fame has its criteria, man. I think that as far as these last 4, Space World, Madden, Tomb Raider, and Final Fantasy, I think they picked them out. I think they did a good job of picking those out. They're pretty significant. And as far as the other games that they have already been inducted, it's pretty awesome. But is this just the online kind of thing, or is there a physical manifestation somewhere? It's at the Strong Museum, though, right?
So yeah, it's at the Strong Museum. There's actually a physical manifestation. They're going to have it on display forever. Let's hope it's forever, but it's indefinite.
Other than the fact that I agree that they're pretty influential, I mean, I like some... the criteria they have is pretty cool. Other than that, it's it's one of those things where everybody has an opinion. I mean, honestly, I would have Metroid Prime inducted every single year, but to the Strong Museum what their criteria is, man. But what about anything else, Dan, before we move on to the...
I was just thinking, where's Castlevania on this list? Anyways.
Okay, you know what? I think Castlevania is influential, especially like Castlevania Symphony of the Night and all that was very influential in like the Metroidvania. So Metroid mixed with Castlevania situation. So it was very influential in that sense in a lot of ways. So
it also set a standard on vampires. That's what it did. It set a whole standard on vampires by themselves.
You're saying Interview with the Vampire had nothing to do with it, or Dracula or anything like that didn't have anything? I mean,
Alucard, Castlevania came out before Interview with the Vampire, right? I know the book was written a long time ago, but they didn't actually manifest it into this video game or any type of visual that really actually depicted him in this way until Castlevania. I can fight this on you. You want to fight about it? You want to fight about it?
Alucard is Dracula in reverse. I mean, what more can you say, man? I mean,
all right, anyways, move to the next story.
So next up, with 9 points, Nintendo continues its quest for a mobile hit. The Japanese company's outgoing president, Tatsumi Kimishima, said they, quote, have not reached a satisfactory profit yet, unquote, when it comes to their mobile games, which include Super Mario Run and Fire Emblem Heroes. Incoming CEO Shuntaro Furukawa believes he has high hopes, telling Japanese newspaper Nikkei, saying, quote, the idea that something will emerge that transforms into something big in the same manner as game consoles is the defining mode of the Nintendo business. So basically, their mobile efforts hasn't worked out as well as they had hoped. I know Super Mario Run was pretty good, and that's one of the titles I was sort of referring to, or the titles I was thinking about when we were talking about PUBG, is the fact that Super Mario Run released at $10, but it just wasn't enough. As far as what's satisfactory as they're talking about it, on a mobile platform, it just wasn't enough. You know, I know Fire Emblem Heroes is more of a free to play right from the start, which has been more successful for them. But yeah, I mean, Nintendo's chasing that, man. It's chasing those wells. I mean, my question, Dalan, is should Nintendo give up on mobile or keep chasing down these elusive customer whale?
Well, I gotta say that Nintendo is actually very good at doing their mobile systems. I mean, they've been the leading company in mobile for.
Well, no. But this is just before. Sorry to interrupt. This is mobile, iOS, Android, and we're talking specifically on should they be chasing that avenue?
Yeah, but it's still a part of the same concept. If they actually released real games for the mobile, rather than just those minor microtransaction video games like Mario Run, they might actually be able to get some money out of it. I mean, I think they released that Mario Run for what, $30? Was it $30 when it came out or something like that?
That's the thing. That's the deferring quality to Super Mario Run, was that they released it for $10. It's $10. Super Mario Run. Well, yeah, for $10. Super Mario Run was the closest that you could get to buying a cartridge on your phone. So, and it failed. I mean, if it didn't fail, it wasn't satisfactory, as the word that they like to say. Because, you know, there's 100, 200, 300 million people on mobile. They can't just make it off of 10 million or however many it sold. I need to look it up, but they found out that selling it at $10, even I think they half the price to $5 at some point. It's like, it's just not enough. It just doesn't work for how much profit there is to be made in video games.
Well, you know what I think the thing is that Nintendo doesn't really have a formula to be able to sell their games on the iOS just quite yet. I think they need to find their sweet spot to be able to actually sell stuff and put stuff on the iOS. Unless they want to create a free market of their video games where they want to actually put like smaller entities going through Nintendo on the iOS to try and build up that company and build up the popularity. That's one way to do that. But if they want to actually go to the iOS for sales specifically, they should not have dived in headfirst without a plan.
Well, and you know, you don't follow the industry at all. It's actually interesting that you bring that up. That is one of the things that they said when they first started, was that they want to bring awareness of their brands. But this is something that has started before the Switch release. So they didn't know how big of a success, how big of a runaway success Switch was going to be. So they actually were using, because I think Super Mario Run was released like December 2016, right? So the Switch was out in March. So at that time, they're like, we're trying to build awareness. Now, if we go back to December 2016, the Wii U is a colossal failure. Right. So they're like, we need to do something. So they were kind of tiptoeing their feet into the waters. And I know recently they also mentioned that it's not a zero-sum game. Right. So the worry was for gamers at the time was, well, Nintendo's going to focus more on iOS and the App Store and all that. And they're going to leave consoles behind. But luckily enough for us, quote unquote, traditional or hardcore gamers, the Switch was a runaway success. And now it's kind of like one of those things, like you were just saying, it'll just build. You didn't say it in these words, but it's gonna build awareness for their IP going forward, you know. So, and like you were saying, it might not be the most exciting profit center now, but you know, I mean, as long as the Switch is a success, it's fine. Next Wii U 2 or Switch 2 and it's a flop, they're going full what do you call it, full bore on mobile, man. Just expect them to go full steam ahead on mobile. But for now, we're safe. As far as traditional gaming, we're safe because the Switch is such a huge, immense success. But
these are all true facts, and thanks for piggybacking off of my statement and making it more clear for the audience. I appreciate it.
Back off on nothing. I'm just surprised you know about these. I'm actually, how about that you came to these conclusions all on your own without following the industry? So I like it. I like it. We'll turn it back around.
All right, so I'm going to move on to the next story. We got at 9 points. We have the Rock Band Network making a bit of a comeback, or at least they say it's a comeback. I say it's restructuring, or at least that's how I feel about it, in the way that it actually happened. Because nearly 4 years after the service started shutting down back in September 2014, and months after all the tracks were removed from the DLC store, which was actually earlier this year. A lot of the popular tracks are apparently going to be returning. This was actually confirmed by the company Harmonix on a live stream that they did not too long ago. They told Destructoid, we're doing full QA passes to make sure that I want to say it right, authoring, mixes, and gameplay are up to today's standards. And you can expect the first of these songs with Rivals Season 6, with more to come along with the regular DLC over the course of the year. So again, I think that's just a complete overhaul of it, because apparently one of their issues that they had of why they started slowly tearing down all of those songs was they were having issues with their royalty agreements, and so the purchases made on the older systems won't carry over to the new game. And I guess they wanted to actually restructure it so they could actually start releasing games again and continue to get money from the game. Because I don't know about you, Carlos, but I still love me some Rock Band 4. I'll still buy some songs. People still ask me if I got any new games for it, or get any new songs for it.
What is it that they did? I thought now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, what is it that they did? They're bringing back the network, but it's for the newest release or for the newest game, or well, it's going to be available again for the last Rock Band 4, for example, or whatever it is.
Okay, Rock Band 4 has been ongoing for some time. And at some point, they created the DLC of Rock Band Rivals, and they've been doing seasonal updates where they keep releasing this large list of songs because, every year more artists create more songs, and these artists want their songs to be featured in Rock Band. So they put it up on the list for Harmonix to approve and actually place into the game. Now, at some point, the royalty agreements for these songs ended up running out. So the Harmonix no longer had the right to put up some of these songs on their network, so they had to tear down a lot of their songs. But it was so many that happened at once that they ended up having to remove that system and recalculate which songs they could put up, and hopefully buy some of the rights, or even get some of the royalty agreements going again, so they can re-put these songs back up.
So this is for the last release, right? I guess. But I mean, if you had bought these songs already, you already had them, right? It's just
there are certain songs that you can no longer get.
So how does this affect your life? I'll put it to you this way, Dan. How does this affect your life specifically? Do you have Rock Band 4?
It doesn't affect my life too significantly. I borrowed Rock Band 4 from one of my homies, so I'll give a shout out to him, Superior Demon. But he let me borrow his Rock Band 4. I liked it so much that I bought a guitar for it. So I was just playing that game hard. I was playing that game real hard.
Rock Band is one of those things. I'm just surprised it's still getting that much traction now. I mean, it's just an interesting thing that it's kind of like with Grand Theft Auto 4 recently. Some of the songs had to be taken out of the game, which is like, if you never connected online, they can't take those songs from you. So don't connect online.
But it's PS4. You're always connected.
But no, you could disconnect it, go offline or whatever it is, But it's an interesting thing that we're dealing with now, because all these games are connected live and they stay alive for a long while, and their use is extended over a period of time. Whereas, movies or whatever else, they're just kind of, well, here it is. This is the format. This is what we're going to be using it. But video games kind of stay in play, stay in online communities for a long time. And it's one of those things where, yes, these agreements are made for 5 years, 10 years. And guess what? It's been 10 years since Grand Theft Auto 4. It's been probably around the same time since the last time Rock Band was honestly relevant. I know you still play it, Dalan.
Was honestly relevant. I'll give you that, because I mean, it's been a good number of years. I think 2009 Or 2012 was the last time it was really relevant.
We were rocking out hard with it like 7 or 8 years ago at the last time. But you know, hopefully they get this together, and hopefully the fans are happy that, you know, they're trying to get all this going, and the fact that they're still continuing to get more songs in it is kind of cool to hear, even though it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm looking over here at my Rock Band peripherals, kind of like the plastic wasteland over here.
Hey, bust out your Rock Band. Let's get that done over the weekend. We need to get those songs played.
Get up to date on Destiny 2 first. So next, speaking of Rockstar, actually, the Red Dead Redemption 2 official trailer number 2 dropped, and it's the prequel to the first game, of course. Besides the original Red Dead Revolver, right, by Capcom, which Rockstar took the brand from them. You can see from what I saw, there was maybe some hand combat. It seems like it's going to be a little bit better. There's also a couple glimpses of John Marston without a beard, which, if you guys don't know, he was a protagonist in the first game, or Red Dead Redemption. And the game drops October 26th. Did you check out the trailer? I mean,
I did actually, and it still looks beautiful, but it's more nostalgia for people that actually beat Red Dead Redemption. So I never beat that game. I mean, I still have it just ready to play, but I've been stuck on other games like Assassin's Creed, and now I'm going back to Destiny.
You know, you gotta play it, right? Actually, you know what? This is a prequel, so maybe it makes more sense for you to just wait for this to be out and then go back to Red Dead Redemption 1. But that game was beautiful, man. It's one of the better games. Anytime that people ask me for a list of like, what are the games I need to play? It's like, oh, well, number 1, The Last of Us. Number 2, BioShock 1. And then number 3 is going to be Red Dead Redemption. So it's definitely one of those games that you need to go back and play. I don't know how you missed it, Dylan, but hey, we all have our, what do we call it in Rocket League? We all have our fatal errors. Yes. So, but I don't know. I saw the trailer. I mean, it looks good, man. It looks good. I at this point, I just want to play the game. I'm probably going to start going into blackout or something. But I don't know. Red Dead.
Is that what you're going to call it? Because you don't want it to be spoiled for yourself? You don't want people to tell you about the story before it happens?
Well, but you know what? Usually the trailers, I do this. We've gone to the movies several times. I don't know if you've ever noticed, Dalan, but I'm on my phone or something while trailers are happening, man. I don't look at trailers. I don't nothing, because they give you the whole 3-story arc, right? But there are
well, there are certain trailers that you don't want to actually go see. This is why I stick with a trailer that says, "Are you interested yet?" As soon as I hit that point, I'm like, I'm done watching trailers. I don't need to watch them no more. I'm good. Same reason why I wasn't too interested in watching this trailer, but I wanted to watch it because I knew we were going to include it in this particular podcast.
Well, you said it's like a nostalgic, but I mean, the thing is, yes, it is a story trailer, right? So you don't get a lot of it. So the game is going to be set. What's interesting about the game, and what was interesting about the was actually that it was set around the time when and it says it in the trailer, right? Like the Wild West was about to be tamed. So it was around the turn of the century when machines were coming into play, trains were becoming more common. So yeah, the Wild West being taken over. So you actually see some cool changes from where you're out in the Wild West, and then you go into some more modern cities or modern sections of the game. But you only did that for a little. And it's a prequel, so this is like around that time when all that happened. So it's pretty awesome, man, to see kind of how culturally they were in a shift in culture and modernity, I guess you could call it, where they were, you know, this is the Industrial Revolution, and what does it do to the Wild West? And
I think it would be more so that it's not just set as a prequel. I feel like it's more set out east. You know, because they had like swamplands and stuff like that. I mean, the West had, you know, some areas that were kind of damp and deep like that, but this seems more like out east.
Yeah, but Wild West isn't necessarily that literal, right? I mean, if you're taking it literal, it's like, well, it's in the east. Why are they calling it Old West? I mean, if you're gonna take it to that extent, it's the Old West, man. Yes, east, south, north.
They call it the Old West because we're on the Western Hemisphere. Pay attention.
Yeah, so the hype is real. I'm ready.
So the hype is real. That's all you need to know. The hype is real. Be prepared for it. By the way, that game was actually rated at 8 points, since Carlos doesn't like to actually announce his points, even though the points don't matter, but they kind of do.
That's 8 points. That's a tie with the next one, right? What do we got next, Dalan?
8 points for Sega's upcoming Sonic games and their quality, along with teaming up with Mario in regards to some of these aspects. Because Sega Sammy Holdings president.
Sorry, they're too long, man. What is these multiple paragraphs?
Hey, they're not multiple paragraphs; they're lists. All right, they're there for nice notations. Just don't worry about it; it'll make sense as it goes along. All right, so Sammy, now I can't even say his name. Sega Sammy Holdings, which is now basically the Sega company president, Haruki Satomi. I'm not sure if I said his name right, and if I said it wrong, I apologize to any Sonic fans. Answered questions about the what was occurring after the 2004 debacle that made saving Sega so difficult, and Sega just continued to hemorrhage money out of the fans and just make them feel terrible altogether. I mean, we just had a whole list of disappointed fans. This all really spanned after the Sonic 2006 game, where that game got a Metascore of 30 out of 100. That's a terrible score. I mean, most games that I've seen on a low ball was like 46 or something like that. But 30, that's terrible. I think that's the lowest score I've seen that I actually followed.
Making out with the human was probably like one of the reasons, right?
I'm not surprised that was the case. I know a lot of people were really complaining about that. That was just a big part of it. But Satomi actually said after that game actually dropped and it didn't do so well, and he took over development for the games, he said it will never happen again. And I told our development team or even sales team that we should not release a game unless we have 100% agree. And well, I guess his English wasn't all that great because it was actually notated this way. But we agree that we have 100% confidence in its quality. Okay, so I paraphrase that last part so I can read it properly. But since the time of the 2006 game, they've had their nice slew of test runs and attempts, being like Sonic Rivals, Sonic and the Secret Rings, Sonic Chronicles, The Dark Brotherhood, which was a terrible game too, Sonic Unleashed, which was another nasty game that shouldn't have been released, Sonic and Sega All-Star Racing. I guess they tried to make a racing game like Mario Kart, and I guess it did get a little bit of out there-ness. But then that's when what?
It was a decent racing game. It was not the best racing game, but it had characters from Jet Grind Radio. It had Ryu's Shenmue was in there with this forklift. So and it actually even had Wreck-It Ralph. So anyways, then what's going on with the story? I guess the creator of Sega was saying never again, right? We're gonna make good games. Do you feel like they've did get around to Sonic Mania? I mean, Sonic Mania got some pretty decent reviews. Sonic Heroes was kind of okay, but I maybe they should be in the right trajectory. And I know they were creating an animated series and all that.
Sonic Boom, which they created all those terrible games right in the middle of their good run, because they were creating some actually okay games like Sonic the Hedgehog Episode 4 and Sonic Colors, which was okay. Generations, which was really a step up for them. But then
what I'm saying is they have an animated series with it might even be like a DreamWorks or something like that, that they're actually trying to rebuild the Hedgehog. It's upcoming animated series, and I think
that was Sonic Boom. Oh, you're talking about the new one. You're talking about the Sonic movie that's coming out. That's what you're talking
about. Well, how about do you feel like they've been in the right trajectory as far as have the games been getting better? Has Sonic been becoming a better character?
Well, that's actually what I was getting at, is that they had this small groove.
To get around to it because it's been like 7 minutes on this thing.
It hasn't been 7 minutes. You're just over exaggerating. What I was getting to is their nasty drop when they hit Sonic Boom and ruined like all the characters, and then they took another gigantic step up with Sonic Mania. I think that this is the chord that they finally struck because they realized that how good this game was. They've released another couple of games around it, and they were like, "No, we got to go back to Sonic Mania." Now they're going to be releasing Sonic Mania Plus in the near future, so people's got to get that in the middle of May. I think that's like May 17th. But the biggest question that people ended up asking him, and I guess people just wanted to know how his response would be, is, do you think Sonic can beat Mario? And I assume that would be in popularity, because his response being that maybe one day, but right now, we're over here trying to be friends with Mario. Got us in Mario Tennis and Mario the Olympics and things like that. Or I can't remember what it's called, Rio Olympics. I guess that's what it is because I didn't really play those games. Those aren't my type of games. But I know you love yourself some Mario Tennis. But the biggest question is, do you think that one day Sonic would be able to beat Mario? Because apparently to Mr. Satome is that he kind of wants to just be on par with Mario right now. He doesn't really want to be above Mario in this case.
No, man. Sonic.
No.
Sonic can never beat Mario. It never did. It was never that great of a series in the first place. They had like one or two different games. Mario is just everything, man. Mario is Disneyland of the video games. It is Mickey Mouse of the video game industry. It's in every genre. It's in RPGs. It's in sports games. It's pretty much Mario has dominated everything you can think of. So, no, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, you could have just whittled this story down to what's the trajectory of Sonic. I think it's a good thing that Sega cares enough, but they've been saying this for a while. So, at this point, it's going to be more show than tell. But, you know, some of the games have been decent. Sonic Mania, I think, was in the point in the right direction, I guess. But, I mean, the thing with that one was apparently they used the C or D team to make that game. So, you know, once they start throwing actual resources into the game, I don't know if it gets lost, man. I don't know if it gets lost.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it doesn't. And we want that quality, but we want the quality to be in where it's at right now happens to be that 2D action. I mean, we have all these other 8-bit games that are coming out right now. Just keep Sonic 2D, and we'll be all right for the longest time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard. I think the fact that Mario was able to transition from 2D into 3D was kind of short of a miracle. The fact that it transitioned so
that it happened at all.
That it happened at all, and that it did it so seamlessly, and the fact that now it's on different tracks where there's good 2D Mario games and there's good 3D Mario games, it's kind of amazing because Sonic just was never able to get out of that 2D mold. I mean, there's been little glimpses of hope here and there, but there was like a couple canceled games on the Saturn, and then even the Dreamcast outing was okay, but it slowed them down to basically a crawl, you know? So it was a good game in a lot of respects, but in other ways, it really wasn't the Sonic we knew. So
it wasn't the Sonic we knew. The Sonic we knew is gone.
We'll move on, Dalan.
R.I.P. Sonic.
Enough about that. Let's see. With 6 points, our number 9 story is Beyond Good and Evil: Chasing the Shared World Experience. Apparently, the original was renowned for its quirky story with the female journalist as its protagonist. But now Ubisoft plans on revealing more at E3. But for now has mentioned that the game will be a seamless action-adventure RPG with ship management and a character creator, instead of playing as Jude by default, as it was in the original game. Your role will be of a pirate captain and will be playable solo or online, featuring ship-to-ship battles and hand-to-hand combat. And it's kind of upsetting, Dalan. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think you ever played the original, but the original was sort of a third-person action game where you took photographs and you've kind of... I mean, it was actiony. It wasn't the best action game. There was some lag. There was some slowdown, but it was a cool, quirky story about a journalist trying to get to the bottom of the truth, right? Trying to get to the bottom of the conspiracy. Now they're turning it into like a Sea of Thieves or into another Destiny. So I don't know, Dalan. Is it our next Destiny, the Beyond Good and Evil 2?
Well, you want to make anything our next Destiny. You want to move on, apparently. But for Beyond Good and Evil, no, I didn't. Well, I'm just going to answer your question. No, I didn't play it, but I have heard it's like the Uncharted of the older world. It's just coming to light, and they're actually updating the heck out of it. I mean, at this point, I might have to go back and play the original.
It's not at all Uncharted. Don't go.
No, I'm not saying it's at all. I'm not saying it is Uncharted. I just feel like it has this Uncharted-esque feel to it from the way that people describe it. I know you haven't described it that way because obviously you're upset by the reference all by itself, but deal with it.
It does really apply. I mean, that's really what doesn't really apply. I mean, as far as like, unless you want to say it's another third-person adventure game, but you don't shoot.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
No, you don't shoot. I mean, yeah, but you could compare it to, what was that, Ty the Tasmanian Devil game or whatever? Did you get compared to any? And that's a third-person action game. But no, I mean,
I'll compare it to Spyro the Dragon just because.
It's one of those games that if you go back, it's one of those games that probably most definitely did not age well, but it was still a cool game. It was a cool, back in early PS, actually maybe like middle of PS2 console life cycle. But now with this new one, they're kind of changing it almost completely, right? They're just like, we're just gonna do another share world game. You're a pirate captain, you're doing this and that. So it's basically Beyond Good and Evil in name only, right? But other than that, it's that's what I'm saying. It's
entirely a game with entirely new mechanics. So are you actually excited for it though? Are you gonna buy it and play it?
I actually had forgotten that they did have an image a couple years ago where it was Jade and then the pig character, I forget his name, but it was looking cool. Like they would look like they were broken down. One of their cars were broken down in the middle of the desert or something like that. And then now that I remember, they did show this crazy, just it didn't look at all like Beyond Good and Evil trailer a year ago. I was like, oh man, I had forgotten about that. I think I had just put it in the back of my mind to not remember it, but now that I'm thinking about it, I was like, oh,
it actually looked pretty good.
No, it's a completely different game. I mean,
I said it looked pretty good. That's what I'm talking about. It's like I didn't play the original, so I don't have that same standard to hold it to. But for the game as it was when that other trailer dropped, I said, hey, this looks like a pretty good game. You're like, I don't know. Well, that's you. Good for you.
I mean, it's fair to say, right? It's one of those things where, and I'm not one to kind of try to stay attached to what a game was, and you have to keep it that way. But it's just a complete departure. It's just not, whether it's good or bad. I mean, it looked like a good game. It looked like an interesting game. It just, wasn't Beyond Good and Evil. That's just it. So now, I mean, we'll see what we get. At the very least, they're saying that at E3 they're gonna show some more, and they're gonna see how it ties it to Beyond Good and Evil. And I mean, we'll see. At this point, we're just gonna have to hold on to our memories.
You can hold on to your memories. I have nothing. I'm just gonna cast my doubts aside.
with rose-tinted glasses, and be like, because if you go back, it probably doesn't hold up. The graphics are pretty crappy, I'm sure. But
I could play that re-release that they had for it. But anyways, I'm gonna move on to the next story that we technically have, being that this one I believe fell at 5 points, but you didn't put the points up for this one.
Hey, we at least for Beyond Good and Evil. Sorry, Dalan, to interrupt you, but
thanks for jumping back.
Did you try that? Maybe you should check that out.
Wait, for which one?
For Beyond Good and Evil, they did do a HD remaster or something.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Anyways, so I'm gonna move forward because you're tracking backwards.
There's just lag. There's just lag.
Oh, okay, there's lag. Well, apologies to our audience that there's that lag. Hopefully, we won't have that next time. But Carlos has had some computer technical issues.
It's there for us, not necessarily for them.
But, okay, well.
Story over here, Dalan.
All right, story over here being at 5 points, which you didn't actually put the score up for this one, is we wanted to actually talk about this previously, but they ended up pushing the release for this game back. We ended up doing what is that called that we actually did, Carlos? We did a review.
Yeah, we did a review, a separate review, but you didn't say what it was. So
I didn't say it was Death Road to Canada. I was actually building up to that as soon as you told me what the word was. We played a game called Death Road to Canada. So it comes out May 8th, being Tuesday, May 8th. So for anybody who doesn't know, it is a great 8-bit, I guess 16-bit game. It was like 3D / 8-bit, 16-bit, and I thought it looked pretty cool. And me and Carlos was playing it. It was very much I compared it to Oregon Trail, and
humor in it, the story in it is very Oregon Trail-ish.
Yeah. Well, along with the Binding of Isaac and just going in and just murdering things with your friends.
It's Oregon Trail, the Millennial Edition, I guess, because it's all zombified, right? There was zombies Oregon Trail. So it's kind of like that. It's a very simple it's not even a platformer, right? It's kind of a simple walking around game where you're kind of going from house to house and kind of scavenging for supplies. It's kind of a simple action game, right? A simple action game where you actually have a gun, you have different little weapons in it that you pick up, and we can play a co-op, but if your character dies, you have to find another person along the way. So that was one of the drawbacks to it. But it was
very realistic that way.
I mean, realistic, sure, as much as 2D pixelated graphics go. But you know, it was one of those things that we were gonna do a review of it, but we've had the game for a couple weeks, and it's one of those things where the whole thing in Toronto happened, and you know, the crazy guy just kind of ran over a whole bunch of people, and it was kind of like, you know, it was inappropriate to release it at that time. But you know, now that it's, I mean, it really hasn't been that long though since that happened, right? So it's kind of like.
But at this point, we could still say that our hearts still go out to the people who were actually impacted by the tragedy that happened out in Toronto, Canada. It's
an unfortunate. It is an unfortunate thing. I just think it's funny that it just seemed like they needed it to get out there and recoup some of the investment, I guess, because it's one of those things where some games get canceled, man. Some games don't see release. Now, of course, it's still going to affect them because I'm sure they're not going to push it as hard as they otherwise would have pushed it, because they're like, dude, you guys are pushing this game about a van. Because I mean, we played the game and
it's not necessarily about running people over, but you do drive a lot, and there are points where you get to run zombies over, and you get to do it in hordes.
There's scenes in the game where you come crashing into the scene and you're running zombies over, right? Which is not exactly humans. They're zombies, right? They're the undead. But it's sort of evocative of that story that happened a while ago. And I mean, maybe it's one of those things where news are just like evolving. We just get kind of inundated with stories left and right, where it's like, dude, that was like months ago. And it's like, no, it was actually like a week and a half ago. And it was pretty tragic. But, you know, as far as like, if you guys are interested, it has nothing to do, like you were saying, with running people over. It's a really simple sort of survival action 2D pixelated game that you know, we had fun with, and it has sort of an Oregon Trail type story to it and humor. You know, so Oregon Trail Millennial Edition. But yeah, so if you guys are, you know, go ahead, and I'm not sure how much it is. I don't know if it's 10, 15, 20 bucks. It might be worth it. What is your range, Dalan? What would you say it's worth it at what point?
For that game, it's worth a good 15 bucks. Man, I don't know what you did. I don't know what you did. They got nasty for a minute.
So yeah. So anything else then before we move on to our last thing, or one last?
No, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Just for people that haven't gotten it, try and pick up the game. It's actually a pretty good game.
All right, so one more thing. This is what did not make the weighted list. So there's just one thing that didn't make it, and me and Dalan still wanted to mention it. So for me, it's you know, why Microsoft stopped talking about sales numbers. Microsoft has not released Xbox One console sales numbers since November 2014, when it has said it sold 10 million systems. EA later spilled the beans and said that the console was up to 18 million to 19 million in January 2016. A Microsoft spokesperson told Variety last week, quote, "We are continuing to look at engagement as our key metric for success and are no longer reporting on total console sales," end quote. My question, Dylan, is the conspiracy solved, or is this just another sign of just how much has dominated this console cycle, man? I mean, basically they gave up, right? They're like, look, we don't want to tell you how many consoles we've sold, because what about engagement? What about people that are actually there? How much time do they spend on their system? And that's basically what they're saying.
Yeah, they don't want to focus on the numbers because they know that they're not doing the best. They're trying to turn it around in other aspects. They want people to focus in other areas rather than how much money the company's making, because they don't want to have to be concerned about their stock dropping because they didn't sell as many units. So they want to be able to focus on the things that people do enjoy, which is their fan base and hardcore people who just love the Xbox to death. But for their sales, it's definitely not PlayStation sales. It's definitely not Switch sales.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's basically like 10 people are playing Sea of Thieves, but you know, they play for 10 hours a day. So isn't that what matters? That forever. So it's just one of those things that I had mentioned it last week when we were talking about the sales, and I told you, I was like, notice how they didn't put console sales in here. And basically they're now confirming that they're like, you will never get those sales unless, of course, an EA or somebody spills the beans again. It's like, they're about at 25, because from November 2014 to January 2016, they sold an extra 8 or 9 million. In that time, I'm sure Sony sold like 30 million PlayStations. So, you know, Microsoft is kind of in the rear view right now, in the rear mirror. But what's your last thing, Dalan, before we get up out of here?
Well, last thing I actually have is a recent report that actually had come out about Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony, along with Hyundai, HTC, and Asus, which wasn't actually included on that top line. But they were actually given a 30-day to remove warranty voided stickers or face legal action from the FTC, which is, well, the Federal Trade Commission. But I thought that was in itself crazy enough to mention here, being that they actually sent out letters to all 6 of these companies and said, you have 30 days to take down these prohibited warranty policies or prepare to face legal action. One of the examples that they had given is in one of the clauses for Microsoft's Xbox, when you actually try to get it repaired, is Microsoft is not responsible, and this warranty does not apply if your Xbox One, or accessory is repaired by anyone other than Microsoft. Now, if you actually send anything out to Microsoft or Sony or a car company like Hyundai, and they repair it, it's like $75 just for them to do it. Now, I'm sure a couple people out there in the world know what that's like. But according to the Act of 1975 Manuson-Moss Warranty Act, which made it so that no manufacturer... Yeah, we are. This is a crazy... This is just a specific act that they decided to actually reference, but it states that no manufacturer charging more than $5 for a product could place restrictions on the repairer of the device. So when they actually place the restriction that no other place can actually repair it because it's voided after 30 days, they're like, nah, there's something wrong with this. They're just outside the guidelines of what it's supposed to be. So they need to actually change that guideline. And I don't know what they're going to do to be able to actually continue to have that warranty sticker still be valid for when somebody actually breaks that seal. So I'm hoping that the FTC really gets to go after them for this, because I want them to change that policy. Like,
so what this would do? So one of the things is, if, for example, they do have a sticker there, so if you open it up, you void the warranty, right? What they're saying is that it doesn't matter if someone opened it or not. You should be able to send it to Microsoft, or it shouldn't void your warranty, right? Even Correct. If you open it or have someone repair it. So that's it. I mean, that's pretty significant, right? That's one of the things that keeps people from messing with them, messing with these consoles. But I mean, what do you do when people break their consoles, right, for doing some illegal stuff, right? So then a whole other question, right?
But it's not the fact that their console's breaking and they're trying to take it to other people to actually get it fixed. It's the fact that they won't send it to these companies because, or at least they won't go to the third-party vendors because they don't want to break their seal, because they don't know what that warranty entails specifically. So they want to actually hold on to that sticker and send it back to the company, and the company's already going to charge them $75. If they break their seal, they should still be able to send it into that company to get their system fixed, even if the seal is broken. But when the seal is broken, even if it's a minor issue that's way cheaper for another company to fix, the company like Microsoft or PlayStation won't accept it to actually repair the system. And that's actually what they're aiming at here, is that they shouldn't be saying, we're not going to repair your system and it'll void all warranties that you have on that system. That's what's really getting the FTC to come after these guys.
No, and this will affect their bottom line and everything, I like this one, Dalan. I'll give you credit for this one. It was nice. You got to the point, and of course, on this Salient Points, you tune in for the latest in the different acts, right? We had a 1975 act, 1930 act, so podcast all the acts you could ever want to know about. I'm your host, Carlos Macias. Thanks for tuning in this week to Salient Points number 30. Dalan, anything you want to say? Oh, you guys
I'm
can
your
see me.
co-host, Dalan Kirkwood. You can find me at _Zacia_. You can find Carlos at AduceClean on Twitter. So thank you very much for announcing yourself. I get to beat you to the punch, but I think I'm gonna go to bed now.
Yeah, quite ordinary on this one, Dalan.
I believe it. Oh, actually, I'm not going to bed. What are you talking about? I'm gonna go play Destiny. I'll see you guys later.
we got to get down with. I guess we got to level up or something. Yeah,
level up.
Yeah, we got to level up. We got to get ready, I guess, for the expansion. But making some fair points. You're making some salient points.
I concur.